You're listening to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, where we discuss career and industry insights with our peers in marketing.
We're here to talk about it all, like the ups and downs of working in social media,
how to build authentic relationships in the influencer and PR space,
managing a 9-to-5 and a side hustle at the same time,
how to be productive in your life and career without losing your sanity, and more.
Ultimately, we're here to build a community with you because we're all trying to navigate the world of marketing together.
Are you ready? Grab your favorite drink and join your hosts, Cassie and Erica, for this week's episode.
Brandon, welcome to Marketing Happy Hour. How are you today?
I'm great, Cassie. How are you?
I'm doing so well, and I am so stoked to talk to you. You and I have gotten the chance to get to know each other over the last several months, and just grateful to Allie. Shout out to her for connecting us, and just stoked for our audience to learn more about you and kind of what you've been working on, and just overall the work that you've done specifically with the students within the Disney College program and the internship program, and just helping to develop and lead them to chase their goals and what they're working on in their career. So thank you so much for being here to share all that with us today. But first I have to ask you, what's been in your glass recently? What are you enjoying?
Oh, wow. Okay, so what I'm enjoying, well, currently I have a giant 32-ounce bottle of water in front of me, making sure I hydrate.
Yes.
My go-to, it's funny, I'm not much of a coffee drinker myself, so my go-to option is orange juice. Yeah, go figure, orange juice. But I live in Florida, so it's perfect. So yes, I like to say I'm an orange juice connoisseur. Yeah, I typically get asked the question, pulp, no pulp, and I'm all about pulp. I need pulp in my orange juice. I love it as well. And yeah, anytime I can just find a good orange juice, I don't know, it fills my cup. It makes me happy. It starts the day. One other thing I will share as well that I'm just exploring, and I don't know if I can throw this out here. I just recently discovered Dutch Brothers coffee. Now, again, I'm not a coffee drinker, but they have some absolutely amazing teas there.
Yep.
So actually, just before having this 32-ounce bottle of water that I have in front of me, I actually had a passion fruit iced tea from Dutch Brothers. So that's one of my go-tos now. I love it. I'm hooked.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, they just recently started making their way down to Florida where we both are, and which has been really exciting. We had someone from their team on the podcast probably almost about a year ago, and that was before the launch in Florida, and she kind of gave us a little bit of a tease, and now that it's here, it's been awesome to get to enjoy that firsthand. And I agree, their teas are fantastic. Yes. Oh, I love that so much. Well, thank you for sharing that. So tell us a little bit about your career journey. How did you end up where you are today?
Well, my career journey all started here with Disney, and I like to say it started with the Disney College program a long time ago, as I say. But on my college program, I worked attractions at the Magic Kingdom Park. And I worked Fantasyland attractions more specifically, and I always throw in there, It's a Small World was my home. So, and I absolutely loved it and learned a lot about myself and developed some very critical and very important life skills and professional skills during that program as well. After doing that program, I went back to school and I earned a degree in human resource development. And I didn't really know, actually, at the end of finishing college, what I wanted to do next, and that led me back to Disney. I loved my time on the program, and I wanted to learn more about the business and the operations, so I decided after school that I was going to return to Disney. So I did, and when I returned, I didn't come by way of doing an internship with Disney. I just started out working on the front lines. And I came back and worked as an attractions cast member and spent a brief time working at Space Mountain at the Magic Kingdom, and then had an opportunity to go over to what's now Disney Springs or Downtown Disney at the time to work at a place called Disney Quest. And it was during that time while I was at Disney Quest that I sat down and had a good long conversation with one of my leaders. And this leader became a mentor of mine as well. And he just took the time just to ask Brandon, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Kind of that question, what's your 5-year path? And I said I wanted to go into leadership at Disney. I was so inspired and motivated by many of the leaders that I met, not only in my college program, but throughout my career. And I said, I wanted to give back. I wanted to do that and be a leader. And so he gave me some tips and tricks and advice on how to do that. And he said one of the key things with this is just finding ways that you can serve and act as a leader now. So really performing as an informal leader. So while you don't carry the title of leader, just really focusing on how you can act as one in your day-to-day. And so I said that made sense. So I found ways to do that, not just through my actions, but taking on more responsibilities. I became a trainer as well. And I absolutely love training people. And that's really what led me down to this pathway in the role that I'm in now at Disney. But I did that. And then eventually I would step into leadership at Disney. And I had about a 7-year run as a leader here at Disney as a guest experience manager, working as the front lines in our parks. And I worked at Disney Quest as a manager. I worked guest relations at the Magic Kingdom Park as a leader as well. And also had an opportunity to serve as a frontline leader for Frontierland attractions. So really a lot of my experience, or most of my experience, has been within the park operations segment of Disney. But I've absolutely loved it. I took a short break and a brief break from Disney in 2015. And I always share this part of my story because it was difficult stepping away from the company. I almost say, and Cassie, you're probably familiar with this too, there's sometimes this Disney bubble, and we're in that Disney bubble, and it just feels so comfortable and it's nice and everything's great. And I mean, truly I say at Disney, you feel like you're taken care of, right? And you have the resources available to you. But I was at kind of a turning point in my career, and I was really deciding on what I wanted to do next. And I could not find or really identify a clear path. So I made this decision to step away from my role at Disney, and I relocated to my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. And I kind of just, I guess you'd say, I restarted life again. So I decided to hit the reset button and attempt to start over and see what life was like outside of Disney. And, I enjoyed it. I liked it. My heart was still at Disney, but I enjoyed it. I learned a lot about myself, and there were also some challenges that I faced along the way too. But really during my time in Atlanta, I learned more about the world of talent acquisition and recruiting, and I worked for a startup that was based in Chicago, but operated in Atlanta as well. And I loved talent acquisition, so I said, I want to do more of this and help identify talent and match that talent with work and positions. And so I did that, and eventually I said, you know what, I needed to make my way back down to Florida because, as I mentioned before, I missed Disney. So I came back, moved to Florida in 2018. Prior to returning to Disney, I worked with the Orlando Magic, so the NBA franchise here in Orlando. And in that role with the Orlando Magic, I served as, my title was Fan Experience and Talent Manager. So it was a combination of focused on operations work and leading our suite levels within the arena here, or the Kia Center here in Orlando. But the other part of it was something that I was really passionate about, which was employee engagement and employee development and training and development as well. So I really love that component. But again, my heart was still at Disney. And so I found my way back to Disney in 2019 and initially came back and worked in the world of talent acquisition. And then I had this amazing opportunity to join the team that I'm part of right now, which is the Disney Programs team, which focuses on the college program, our international programs, and our culinary programs. And I've been here ever since. And I love what I get to do every day. So it's been a crazy journey. I always feel like it's a long story to share. And there are even parts of the story that I didn't necessarily share here. But, I learned a lot about myself during the journey. But honestly, every single experience that I've gained or, I've been part of along the way has helped me to get to this role and where I'm at today.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I have to kind of call you out on this too. You're getting your master's degree right now.
Yes.
So kind of another piece of your story. And, I was telling you off record, we have a lot of people who come to us and say, should I do it? How should I think about this, or which program should I pursue, et cetera. But just kind of generally, why do you feel that was important for you to further your education as a professional? And what are you hoping to get out of that experience just to contribute to your career overall?
Yeah, I had to be intentional with it. That's the first thing. And it was something that I think was in my mind for a while, and I just didn't pull the trigger to say, hey, let's do it. And it was a peer of mine, a coworker here with Disney, that said, Brandon, just do it. Like, you just need to do it. And it's like, you're not getting any old, or you're not getting any younger at this point, so you need to do it. Take action. And that led me to take action at this point. So instead of placing myself in that process of, I'm thinking about it, I said I needed to do it. And then I also wanted to be intentional with it as well. The work that I get to do in my role here at Disney is really centered around learning and developing others. And what I've learned, and something I've really learned along the way, is that I really enjoy creating content. So outside of work, something else I'll share too. I love photography. So photography is a hobby of mine. And it just gives me that element and that space to be able to create something. And so I found these opportunities within my current role to be able to begin creating more, right? Creating classroom content, creating visuals as part of it. And so that is what led me to say, hey, you know what? There's a field for this. And so instructional design really focuses and centers around, curriculum creation and training content creation for adult learners. And I said, you know what, this is just a small fragment of my job function, my current job function, and I think it's something worth doing. So I was like, I'm doing it. So I had to be intentional with it, which I did. And then it was just a matter of saying, okay, dedicating the time to do it, right? And so, it's all about just trying to find that right balance of time. And I say, you can always make time to do it, especially for growth and development purposes as well. So, one of the things I say, you dedicate time. Sometimes you have to make a few sacrifices along the way, but I am 3 weeks into this journey, so I just started this semester, but it has been amazing. I'm learning a lot as I go, but it's a great way to connect, right? And I definitely see myself as a lifelong learner and an avid learner as well. And I enjoy just exploring new topics, learning wherever I can or whenever I can, and just broadening my own horizons when it comes to building new knowledge. So I think that's what led me to go back and do it as well.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love that you have this draw to photography, because it's certainly an outlet of mine as well. So it's so fun. And I think just kind of what you were saying made me think of a principle I love to share too, is just keeping tabs and paying attention to what you draw to naturally outside of work, because chances are you're probably passionate about that, and that's a skill set you have. And so learning ways that you can bring that into your professional career, kind of like what you're navigating and figuring out, I think is so powerful. Because if you draw to it personally, chances are you're going to be lit up doing it in your professional career as well. So kudos to you for kind of figuring that out and learning how you can infuse that creativity in the work you're doing. I think that's excellent.
Yes, and I was just going to mention that is so true, right? And you find ways to apply your passions within your professional life. Yeah, you will thrive, right? You'll thrive and grow in your career. And I always share with people, find small ways that you can do it. Find ways you can contribute outside of your day-to-day job function, right? Whether it is, you're on a committee at work, or I don't know, you're part of a volunteer organization within the workplace as well. Find ways that you can apply your passions to help others. And I think that has helped me throughout my career. And it's such an important element. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. So I want to talk about leadership a little bit. You mentioned at the top of the episode just this idea of being a leader, even though you don't necessarily have a title-based leadership role, right? And maybe that's eventually the goal to get there. But just overall, what do you feel are those essential qualities or skills we should be focusing on as professionals as we develop as a leader and hopefully in the future step into more of a title-based leadership role?
I will say the first thing, and one of the top essential qualities to have, will be emotional intelligence, and just being able to regulate and understand your own emotions and regulating those emotions as a leader, but then also understanding the emotions of others and being able to adapt and adjust and pivot and flex based off of those emotions. That is probably, honestly, has been one of the most important things and qualities that I have found beneficial throughout my career as a leader. I go back and I mentioned I started out, I worked as a trainer at some point, and while, that's not a formal leadership position, it was so important to understand and leverage emotional intelligence to get a better understanding of how people learn, right? Everyone has a different learning style. They have a different way of being able to process information as well. And, you have to understand that there are individuals that might not necessarily grasp certain topics as quickly as others. And you have to understand that emotional intelligence can help guide you through that, right? To better understand how do you adapt and adjust what you're teaching, what you're training to other people, just based off of understanding how they're feeling as well. So emotional intelligence is definitely one of those top essential qualities to have. The other one that I will always say, and honestly I'd probably put this before emotional intelligence too, will actually be integrity. And so integrity is all about just how do you build your own trustworthiness, where people will say, hey, you know what, I can trust you. I know that you're going to always do the right things, and you're always going to do it keeping the right ethical behavior at the front of mind as well. So you're always going to do the right thing even when no one is watching. And we hear that a lot as leaders. That is so important, right? So maintaining that integrity is key. I think when you're able to build that level of trust and people say, hey, you know what, this individual's just, they're trustworthy, they do the right things, I can trust them, and I know I can turn to them as well. So I've found that that was extremely beneficial during my early days and even throughout my career as a leader here at Disney and also outside of Disney as well. And then I'll throw one more out there too, and that's resiliency. And I'll say with resiliency as well, it's just all about being able to handle setbacks. And so again, I'm just going to talk about personal setbacks. And in life, I mentioned there was the period 2015 to 2018 when I did not work at Disney and I decided to leave. And I will share, while it was a good time, it was also probably one of the most challenging times of my life. I always mention the first job that I picked up, I wasn't intentional about taking that job. When I moved to Atlanta, I just said, oh, great, I need a job because I want to relocate and move. And so I took the first job that I could find. I didn't know much about the organization. And I said, sure, yes, accept the job offer. And I moved, and I quickly learned after being there for about 3 months that the organization wasn't a right cultural fit for me. And I said I needed to leave, right? So I didn't move with intent there. And, that was a setback, because then I had to make the option. I'm like, do I apply for another position while I'm still working this job that I'm not enjoying? Or do I just leave this job and then try to find something else and go without a job for a while? And, you have to weigh out all these decisions. But that first move, and by only staying in that job for 3 months, made me realize that, oh my goodness, am I making the right decisions by, deciding to up my life or uproot my life here in Florida and leaving Disney and moving to a new location to kind of rebuild my career. And I realized at some point that, no, I'm learning from it, right? So resiliency, I will say, is always about how do you learn from setbacks and mistakes, and how do you apply that moving forward in the future. So again, I look back at my move to Atlanta and I say it was a good learning experience for me. Clearly, I ended back here in Florida, and there was a period in my life where I did kind of beat myself up over it. And I was like, well, you moved back. That meant that you failed. You didn't stay there. You didn't make and build that life that you wanted there as well. But you know what? In that, I learned a lot about myself. And, I learned how to be more strategic with the decisions that I make, especially when it comes to my own career and how I wanted my career path to grow. But then it also taught me, too, some very valuable skills that I've been able to apply in this role. So honestly, again, I'm going to say that although I felt like that period of my life was challenging, I honestly, again, do not believe or feel like I would not be in this position, in my role, being able to help develop other people had I not stepped away to take that opportunity as well. So I think just having that resiliency and kind of reframing your thought process and your mindset as well when you are experiencing setbacks can go a long, long way.
Yeah, that's such a great lesson. And it kind of goes hand in hand with my next question of this idea of wanting so badly to be at the next step in your career. I think just this day and age in our generation, we're so forward thinking and we're so goal pressed, which has a lot of benefits to it, right? But sometimes I think it leads to this resentment of feeling like, why can't I get to the next step? Or why am I not at this role yet? Or whatever the reasoning is. And so just overall, how do you feel we as professionals should effectively navigate this balance between being proactive and doing the things we need to do to develop and eventually get to the next step, and just being patient and knowing that there's something to be learned currently where we're at, and doing the most and doing the best that we can during that time before we get to that next step?
Well, I definitely say treat every day as a learning day. And every day you're learning something new. And I think if you're able to approach your current work and your current position that way, you'll see and you'll learn that, you know what, maybe there are things I didn't know before about my position. So I've heard people, and I've heard people say this, well, I feel like I've kind of plateaued out in my position. And I will always challenge people to say, are you absolutely certain that you've plateaued out? Or, do you feel that there are other things that you can learn? Or there are other ways that you can challenge yourself? So the first thing I just share with this is just, treat every day as a learning day. Learn something new, right? That will continue to help you to kind of bloom where you're planted or grow where you're planted as well. The other thing I say with this is continue to focus on building relationships with people. That is so important and so key with your own growth and development. Now, it requires a level of patience with it because, of course, when we network with individuals, we're expecting immediate results, right? If I network with someone, that means I'm going to land this position or land this job, and that's not quite the case. It's all about building these relationships, and these relationships in turn can lead to long-term gain and long-term benefit. So that's the one thing I just share there too, is continue to focus on, instead of focusing on, I need to get that next promotion, right? Just focus on how do you keep building relationships with people during this time. And then when that time is right and everything is perfect and you've continued to develop your skill, not only have you built these skills, but you've also built some amazing relationships and individuals that can advocate for you along the way. And I had to, I learned that in my career, even here at Disney. When I stepped into my first leadership role, it again didn't happen overnight. I started out with Disney. I worked at Disney for 3 years before I stepped into that first leadership role. And there were quite a few moments when I thought, oh my goodness, this needs to happen tomorrow. Like tomorrow when I wake up, I need this promotion as a leader. And, one thing I did not share in this story was the first time around when I applied for this process to become a leader here at Disney, I was not supported. And it wasn't because I was bad at my job or, I didn't do it well. It was just that my leaders in my area needed more time to learn more about me, and they needed to get a better feel of these relevant leadership skills that I would bring to the table. So it required a level of patience. So what did I do during that time? I focused on continuing to seek feedback and seek their guidance and say, okay, well, if I'm not ready now, what can I do to ensure that I am ready the next time around, right? And they would provide that feedback and I would take action on it. So that's the other part of it too, right? How do you open yourself up to feedback and apply that feedback as well? And, the other thing I say too is just keep in mind that not every move needs to be a promotion. Like, it doesn't need to be a direct promotion. Look at lateral moves as part of it. And that's why I say that every day is a learning day, because you could find opportunities that will often be lateral moves for you too. Not everything needs to be an upward promotion as well, right? Find ways to grow and develop and blossom where you're at in this moment too. And I think those are just a few ways that will kind of help you navigate through developing and building your career while also trying to maintain some patience with it too. Sometimes it does. You just have to give it time. You have to give it trust. But again, do not allow yourself to just fall complacent. And I see that quite often where people just say, well, if I'm told today's not today or it's not going to happen today, then why am I doing this? And they just give up, they fall complacent, and they say they're never going to grow. But if you find opportunities and ways to take feedback, seek feedback, and apply it, I guarantee you, you'll find that, in the long run, you'll see some great gains from that.
Yeah, really, really good. And I want to kind of touch on relationships too that you mentioned. I agree as well. Relationships are so incredibly crucial just as a person too, just learning different walks of life and different experiences and everything. And of course, it's so beneficial professionally as well. But I know sometimes as younger professionals, specifically, we're a little bit cautious with approaching new people and how do we spark new relationships and where do we even begin in discovering new connections to tap into or to build. Any tips around that of just where do we not only discover new people to spark relationships, how do you approach those relationships just intentionally and hopefully building confidence through that, if that makes sense?
Yes. It's funny because I had this conversation with one of our executive leaders recently, and I mentioned this just prior to us recording this podcast that, as I was going through and deciding whether or not I was going to take one or two classes for my master's program, I had a great conversation with one of our executive leaders. And in that conversation, we actually talked about being able to build connections with people and the importance of that. And, this leader just shared that she gets quite a few requests from individuals just simply saying, hey, I want to sit down, I want to chat with you, I want to do a meet and greet. And, she said something that kind of sparked my interest and made me say, oh, this is a very, very good concept that you've mentioned here, which is this. Sometimes that meet and greet or the root of just simply saying, hey, I want to set up a meet and greet with you is like just your easy way to build relationships. And she said, you know what, I really value when people put some effort into building the relationships with people. So not just simply looking at doing meet and greets, but do your homework. So learn more about individuals. Like if you say, hey, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and I want to find 2 or 3 individuals that, have just a great breadth of like career experience and their career path will take, is very similar to the pathway that I want to take. And you say, oh my goodness, like I love these individuals and I want to connect with them. You don't simply just need to start by doing or scheduling a meet and greet with them. Find a way to find that in outside of the meet and greet. So maybe they're a guest speaker at an event, I don't know, or maybe you are at a networking session and you see them there. This is a great opportunity. Just go up and say hello to them. That hello is just the start of building the relationship with people. And so what she shared was, for example, she was a guest speaker somewhere at a location, and it just so happened that there was another employee that heard her speak, and this individual had the courage just to go up to her at the end of this presentation just to say hello. Now, this individual actually did their homework and learned more about this executive before she actually scheduled a meet and greet. So she was able to go up and do an introduction. And in that introduction, she just said, well, you know what, I've had an opportunity to learn a lot about you, and I've kind of studied your career path, and I love that you did this in your career. I love that you had this setback or experienced this setback as well. And that resonated with me. And so this executive said, oh my goodness, like this individual took time to learn more about me. They didn't quickly just go to the root and say, hey, I want to set up a meet and greet with you. I don't really know much about you, but I want to set up a meet and greet. But this individual did their homework and then found an in through just an event, right? A random event. So I say find these spaces. If you know that this individual is going to be speaking at an event or they're attending a similar event as well, just simply go up and say hello and do that introduction. That can go a long way and that can be your in. And I thought that was a great thing that she shared there. I think the other thing too is, again, when you're setting up meet and greets, I just mentioned do your homework. So if you're deciding, hey, you know what, the easiest route is to set up a meet and greet, do your homework. Meaning learn more about the person, as I said before, get a better understanding of their background and their experience, and understand your why. Why are you connecting with these individuals? And then that will help to guide the dialogue that you're going to have with them too. Now, I personally say the more that you learn about a person, they're probably going to be more likely to actually want to talk with you, right? Because now you've learned more about them and you learn their story, but now you're just essentially sharing their story with them, with that person. You're like, oh my goodness, like I know if anyone comes up to me and says, Brandon, like I checked out your LinkedIn profile, you've got a very interesting story. I see that you worked or you did the college program and your career path took you outside of Disney as well. I really loved your story, and I just want to hear what was one of the biggest challenges that you faced while you were working outside of that Disney bubble. And I'm like, oh wow, I want to share that story with someone else. So just do your homework and find your ins. I don't know if that answers the question explicitly, but I just say find ways in small and simple ways, whether it is through volunteering, whether it is, again, you're attending a networking event and you're building these connections with individuals to say hello to people and build that relationship outside of that 30-minute informational meeting.
Oh, so good. And I love specifically the example too you gave of finding maybe an event that person is speaking at, or something that kind of bridges the gap there, because I feel like that cold outreach sometimes is a little bit intimidating. So finding an opportunity that's a little less out of the blue, I guess, I feel like is a really good way to kind of approach it. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, indeed.
One of the last questions, I feel like I could ask you a million questions, but one of the last questions I want to ask you is specifically on skill development. I know this is something that you're focused on at Disney, is just providing programs, opportunities, trainings for these young professionals to come in and learn about a number of different topics, which was one of my favorite parts of the college program, is just having those opportunities to learn from other leaders and different departments. And I think it was so critical. So, whether it's within our organization specifically or even outside, what are some practical ways you feel young professionals can continue to grow and hone their skills? What are some areas that we could look at to just not only those practical on the job skills, but just soft skills in general as well?
Yeah. There's so many resources available to us these days, right? We have so much information at our fingertips that, I could provide so many resources. I could start with just YouTube, like YouTube University, and I share that with people. If there's something you want to know, something you want to learn, you can teach yourself. And I say the same, even with photography. Photography has been a hobby of mine for over 15 years now. And it didn't start by sitting in a classroom and taking a photography class. It all started by just picking up the camera, learning it, pressing some buttons, understanding, how do you measure light, right? In order to create an image. So, again, we talk about shutter speed, understanding the aperture and ISO as part of that. All of that came just by doing it. And so, I say if you want to gain or develop a skill, find yourself a passion project. And I share this all the time with people. Like, maybe I don't have the formal work experience, and I want to be able to showcase that I will be a right fit for this position, but I don't have formal job experience. Well, go out and get yourself a passion project. And so again, with photography, it was the same thing. That was my passion project. So I would just pick up the camera, go out whenever I could, carry the camera with me, and take pictures. And then from that, if I couldn't figure out something, so like, for example, I'd say, well, I just took this image, but it appears to be underexposed, right? It's too dark. I don't know what to do here. Then I say, let's find our resources to find the answer. And again, things like YouTube came into play. There's some other great resources out there that you can use to, learn a new trade or a new skill. I again will say LinkedIn Learning is one great tool. Coursera is another one. There's some fabulous tools out there that you can use as long as you're willing to invest sometimes that you can leverage to help you throughout your career. So, I just say it's all about just actively practicing and doing it. But then if you don't necessarily have the answers or you can't figure out something or you hit an obstacle along the way, don't be afraid to ask, right? And so with this too, something else I'll share, and I'll tie it back to photography. If I learned it through YouTube, or I didn't learn it through YouTube, or I didn't learn it through an online learning, then I'd reach out to people, right? And so you need to build the confidence to be able to reach out to professionals or other individuals that have a higher level or a greater level of expertise that can come in and kind of serve as a mentor for you. And I was able to do that too, right? Start building relationships with other photographers and other individuals that said, well, I kind of started out in the same footsteps as well. So I just share, there's so many resources that are in front of you, right? And it's just a matter of whether or not you take advantage of it. And then the other part of it too, as you start developing and you determine some practical ways of developing your skills, just remember, you're not going to become Picasso overnight, I guess I should say. So you need to keep practicing. And something that I need to remind myself of to this day is that it takes time. And we live in a world where we want instantaneous results. We're like, okay, it should happen overnight, right? And I think social media does that to us as well, because we'll often follow influencers and we'll say, oh my goodness, like they're doing amazing things, but we also don't know all of the effort and hard work that went into it as well. So I think you need to be realistic with yourself too. But again, if you practice, just spend 15 minutes a day learning something new. Right now, for example, with my master's degree program, I'm exploring and learning new ways that I can tap into the world of instructional design, although I don't have or necessarily have years of formal experience, of work experience doing instructional design. So again, I'm finding it by way of doing passion projects, just doing some random assignment or saying, hey, you know what, I want to test this out in this software, this application, and saying, okay, let's give it a shot, right? It's not going to be pretty the first time around. That's the other thing I shared too. Give it some time, keep practicing. And I think over time, what you'll see is you'll start to develop and build that skill as well. But those are just some ways to continuously develop your skill and build your skill set and learn and grow in the process too.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. And, you've mentioned LinkedIn a couple times, which I absolutely love following you and just learning tips on mentorship and applying for jobs and things like that, which is a topic we could completely do a whole nother episode on, of just that whole process. But speaking of that, if you don't mind, Brandon, just let us know where we can follow along with you, just see some of that content you're creating and just stay in touch with you overall.
Yes, indeed. So I will say that the best way to contact me and follow me will be LinkedIn. So I post quite frequently on LinkedIn. And most of the posts that you'll find on LinkedIn will be career related. I'll typically share some of the great things that are happening within the college program as well, but most will be career readiness related. But you can find me on LinkedIn. So linkedin.com /in/Brandon D. Rhodes, RHODES. So look for me there. And I always love connecting with people. I always get connection requests. I have people reaching out through direct messages as well. And I always try my best to respond to those. And, any advice, anything anyone wants to know, I try my best to help. So I will say that is the best way to connect and follow me.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited personally to just continue to follow along with you and see how your career progresses, what you learn in your master's program. And just thank you so much for passing along all these insights and information. And it's been such an honor getting to know you over the last several months.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Cassie, and it's always a pleasure speaking with you. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Marketing Happy Hour podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you want more of Marketing Happy Hour but don't know where to start, we invite you to download our free Marketing Happy Hour starter kit at marketinghappyhr.com/starter-kit. This interactive magazine-style PDF walks through who we are, includes helpful resources like a marketing term glossary and the printable daily planner sheet that we actually use ourselves, and contains clickable links to our episode recommendations by subject area. Not to mention all the fun extras like a quiz, the link to our Marketing Happy Hour Insiders Facebook group, a word search, a playlist, a goal-setting guide, content inspo by month, and more. It's our hope that you'll dive into this resource and walk away more confident in your career journey with a group of industry pals that you can lean on for advice and support. Snag your free starter kit today at marketinghappyhr.com/starter-kit for all of the info you need to become a Marketing Happy Hour insider.